Alright guys, welcome back to Reed's Outdoors. I'm glad you guys are here, glad you guys are watching. And it's that time again, ladies and gentlemen, it's that time again. We got another question from a fella that absolutely loves the videos, and he watches them a lot. And he was kind enough to send me in a question, and I figured I'd go ahead and make this video because I thought it was a really good question, and it's a real popular question that's asked a lot. And so I figured it'd be a good time to come on here and answer it. So here we go. Let's get down to business. Now this question is asked a lot by a lot of deer hunters, and that question is, why are big bucks so hard to kill? Why are they so hard to kill? Now I could just go on for probably an hour's worth of video and just absolutely come on here and tell y'all so many things that fall into place as far as why big bucks are so hard to kill. You know, from them just being smart and just us making careless mistakes out in the woods and stuff like that. But I'm not, so I'm gonna try and break this video into trying to break it down to 3 major points. Okay, so. Number 1 would probably be big bucks became big for a reason, right? They became big and they got mature for a reason. They're old. They're really old animals because they do things different than your normal, average, normal young bucks or young does, whichever would ever do. And for example, one of the biggest examples is that I found out and from experience of myself is big bucks do not move as much in the daylight hours. They just don't. And the reason for that is they try to avoid trouble. And this may sound a little crazy, but big bucks can pattern you simply. And when they pattern you, they learn just like us. We know how to avoid trouble. When we know there's trouble around, we know how to avoid it, right? Well, bucks are the same way. They tend to pattern us hunters. They learn to not move as much in the daylight hours. They just become smart. They start patterning you, and they just try to avoid trouble as much as possible. And that's the same reason with nocturnal bucks. Nocturnal bucks, they go nocturnal for a reason. There's a reason why that buck's coming out at night. Like for instance, if you got a buck on trail camera and you've been hunting him and you only seeing pictures of him at night and none in daylight hours, you haven't been seeing him in daylight, period. And there's a reason, because that buck has learned, and it might not just be from you, it's just from all hunters, from any trouble beginning. And that buck has learned, especially if it's a heavy pressured hunting spot where people are really hunting it hard and their scent is all in there and everything like that, and there's always somebody hunting in there, heavily hunted spots, that buck, them mature deer are going to eventually catch on to it. They're going to start patterning you. They're going to start avoiding trouble and stop, and they're going to bed up all day long. And they're going to come out and right after dark, and that's when they're going to move. And that's usually why people get trail camera pictures of big deer only at night. And those bucks, when they go nocturnal on you, when they do that, it can be a real challenge on trying to see a buck in daylight hours. It's almost nearly impossible, but it's not impossible. So it's just, my point is here, it is really hard. So, number 2, their deadliest weapon. Their deadliest weapon is their sense of smell. This right here. That right there is one of the deadliest things to a hunter that a whitetail uses, especially these big mature bucks. And the reason it's so dangerous is, and I'll give you a good example. Let's say you're hunting a scrape, right? You're hunting a scrape and you see a scrape on the ground. You get all excited. It's all pawed out. It's just tore all the hell and back, and there's rub trees over here, over there, and you're thinking, oh yeah, I'm gonna catch this buck. Come slipping in here and checking these scrapes. I'm gonna get me a good, perfect broadside shot. Well, let me tell you something, and this may be a downfall for a lot of you guys, but a buck can check a scrape, right? He doesn't have to come into that general area where that scrape is at to check that scrape. That buck can win that scrape, and when I mean win, he'll get downwind of his scrape and sniff it out. He'll get downwind from it and he'll sniff it out, and if he doesn't smell anything, he won't come in there. And more likely, if he gets downwind from it, he either might smell you as well. And if he smells you, he ain't gonna blow at you. I mean, they will, but if they don't, they ain't gonna come in there. If they blow at you, then they're gonna haul butt, and you're never gonna see them. And more likely, he ain't gonna be back to that area in a while, because once again, he's avoiding trouble. And like I say, he's smart. And so, a buck can check his scrape and win the scrape, 80, well not 80, but 50, 60, 70, 80 yards away, as far away as his nose will allow him to. That buck will stay as far away as possible, especially in the daylight hours like I was talking about, and he'll get downwind from that scrape, and he will wind it, he will smell it. And if he doesn't smell anything, like I said, he will not come in there. He will not come in there. That buck knows he has left his sign in there. He knows he's left his sign in there. That buck ain't going to just come wandering in there in broad daylight. 90% of the time, it doesn't happen like that, normally. And I'm not saying it won't happen like that, but a lot of times it won't. So that's one thing that's a real big downfall. Bucks can check a scrape without even ever coming in there. And if he's 60, 70, 80 yards away from you and he's checking it and he's just winding it, you'll never, ever, ever get to see that buck. And if you don't never, ever get to see him, more likely you ain't going to never kill him. So, number 3. Big bucks try to avoid open areas as much as possible. And the reason I say that is, and it goes along with what I was just saying, big bucks are smart. They do not like to come out in open areas because, when these bucks get old, they've been through the ringer and back. They have been through everything you probably think of. These bucks have probably been shot at. They've probably been blowed out of spots where people have walked in on them and they just blowed up the woods and started blowing and left. It's like during the rut, somebody could have shot a doe that he was trailing, and he could have heard that gunshot, and he turned around, he whipped his tail around and went the other way, and it was clear out of this country, These bucks have been through everything. And that's what makes them smart, because they get smarter, and they start to avoid open areas where, it's just they're exposed. They're exposed, and they don't feel good in that area, they feel uncomfortable. So more likely, bucks try to avoid open areas. Especially if you're sitting up in a deer stand, you're sitting there with your rifle and you're looking down an open area. 90% of the time, that buck isn't going to step out there in plain view. Normally, he won't. That buck, he'll usually walk the outlines of the open area. Like I said, he's avoiding the open area. He will stay off in the thicker stuff instead of just coming out into the more open area. More likely, that buck will come around the edges of that open area to get where he's got to go from A to B if he's passing through or whatnot. So and the reason, bucks always try to avoid open areas. Like I said, bucks usually try to hang out in some of the thickest, harshest place you could possibly think of. That's where they live and that's where they thrive. And the reason they love those kind of spots is because they feel secure, they feel safe, they feel like nothing's going to bother them. They got plenty of cover, and I'm not saying they won't leave those kind of areas. But if they do, usually they won't go real far away from that area because that's an escape route for them. If something they don't like, or if they see something they don't like, or if they hear something they don't like, they'll book it right back into that thick stuff and be gone. You'll never see them again. And that's just how it is, and that's how bucks become old. They get smart, and when they get smart, they usually tend to outthink you. And when they get to the point where they're starting to pattern you, it's it's a challenge. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. It's a big challenge. So I mean, and so that's pretty much all I could tell you on why big bucks are so hard to kill. Like I said, there's plenty of other things I could possibly tell you on why they're so hard to kill, but I mean, I could go through a whole list, but I'm not going to do that, and I'm not just going to do that. But these are the three basic things why bucks are so hard to kill. So I hope this helped you. You know who you are, and appreciate you guys watching. This is Reed's Outdoors, and remember, hunt safe, fish safe. See ya.